Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and this morning I have with me special guest, Mickie Kennedy. Mickie, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. It's a little bad weather here. My daughter's graduation for tomorrow has been postponed because of weather, so we'll just have to deal with some rain and storms.
Oh no, where are you at?
I am in Baltimore County, Maryland. My daughter goes to University of Maryland at College Park.
Okay, so it's exciting times for you.
Yeah.
Big things happening. My daughter's not that old. She's only 10, and we'll see. I don't know if that's going to be a happy or sad day when we're done with school. But we will see how it goes. Well, thank you for being on the show. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your business and what you do?
Sure. So I own eReleases. It is a press release distribution company. I got started in 1998, so it'll be 27 years old in October. And we send out press releases to the media. I used to do it by email. And over the years, I started an alliance with PR Newswire. They liked that we supported small businesses and startups and authors and entrepreneurs, people that their sales team weren't interested in going after because they're just not the $20,000, $30,000 a year type of clients. And so all of our releases go out nationally through PR Newswire, which normally charges like $1,700 plus for a 600-word press release. And through us, it's about a third of that price, maybe even as little as a quarter of the price with a new customer special. So it's a huge savings compared to going directly through them. The qualifier is that you can't be publicly traded or a big giant company that their sales team would be interested in.
What got you into this as you're starting out your entrepreneurial journey? What was going through your head when you got into press releases?
So I was originally going to be a professional waiter, and I graduated with a Master's of Fine Arts in creative writing with an emphasis in poetry. And I was going to write poetry and wait tables, and I did that always part-time through college. But when I did it full-time after graduating with my MFA, I realized 40 to 60 hours a week is very taxing waiting tables. My back hurt. I just felt psychologically damaged at the end of a 10, 12-hour shift. And so I decided to pivot to an office job, and I got hired at a telecom research startup as employee number 3. And one of many things they wanted me to do was to send out releases. And I would have to spend a whole day programming a fax machine and hitting send. And we would send these releases and nothing would happen. And the owner of the company, who was a telecom attorney, said, "Oh yeah, nothing ever really happens." And I was just like, I spent a whole day, programming this fax machine with numbers, which unfortunately we had to delete because we had 130 contacts. And I think the fax machine only held 100. So we were constantly programming and deleting and sending. And so I made it my goal to figure out how I could send out press releases that the media would respond to. And we were just used to publishing charts of data. And what I realized is looking at articles, whether they're newspapers or trade publications, they tend to be more story-based. And raw data is not a story. And so I took some of the data tables of Caribbean telecom traffic we had just published and sent out as a press release. And I redid a press release where we talked about one of the outliers in the data, which was a country, I can't even recall what it was, but at the time it had more telecom traffic inbound and outbound to the United States than basically all the other countries combined. And when you peeled it back, the reason is that was the 1-900 call center. And 1-900 numbers were really popular. So they're all being rerouted through this island. And so I drafted that press release and sent it out, and it got picked up in Financial Times, The Economist,
Wow.
Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and like 3 telecom trade publications. And so I just realized, could I, do this again and again? And I did. And after a while, we were so routinely picked up in business magazines that we started getting a new type of customer. We started getting the hedge fund, the investment people, where before this, only telecom companies were interested in our data. And so it opened up the business to a much larger market. And we were just, constantly being called and asked for our quote in regards to mergers and acquisitions, which were really hot at the time, and all types of things. So we found it easier and easier to get media pickup as a result of that.
Wow, that's a pretty incredible story. So basically, you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, how am I going to do this better? How can I put my spin on it? You put it out there and bam, all of a sudden you're picked up in these major publications, and then customers are coming back to you and they're saying, hey, we want this again. We want this again. We want this again. And all of a sudden it's no longer writing poetry and waiting tables. It's here we go.
Right.
It became a real business.
Yeah. And what happened also is I started to get phone calls as I was faxing saying, hey, in the future, could you email this to me? And that was the light bulb moment saying, hey, I could collect email addresses and just send press releases to the media. And so I went to bulletin boards and hung out where reporters were, and almost all reporters put their email address on their websites. And so I just built a database of journalists and started a little side business at first. And I think I did it for a little over a year before I decided I was ready to leave my day job and do this sort of on my own. And that's how eReleases got started.
Now that's a big deal. I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there are so scared to leave their day job. Like they're so scared to jump into the business. What was the moment in your business, eReleases, when you said to yourself, I'm done with the rat race. I'm getting off the hamster wheel. I'm jumping in the deep end with concrete boots.
So I am pretty risk adverse. So I had saved about 6 months of living expenses, and revenue had reached a point where it was like double what I was making at my day job. And I felt like, okay, even if we had a rough month and it was, cut in half, I would still have, as much profit as I had in my day job. And so I felt pretty comfortable at that point.
Wow. So that's amazing. So did you learn these metrics anywhere, or was this something that you just thought like, hey, when I step out, I want 6 months? Did someone give you that advice, or?
So no one had given me that advice. I just realized that I am very conservative, and I felt like if I lost my job, it would take me a few months to find another really good job if this didn't work out. So I felt like 6 months felt like a safe amount to have. I was also, a time in my life where things were very lean. So my expenses weren't very high. I didn't have a mortgage and things like that. So it was pretty easy for me to sort of accumulate that money and just get started. But funny enough, I don't have a business background. So when it comes to numbers in the business, there was a lot of stuff that I just didn't know starting out. And one of the best things I ever did was I joined a marketing mastermind. And I learned about statistical relevance. I used to just run an ad and say, it doesn't feel like it's doing anything right now. And I would just, switch to a different ad. And so I realized, A/B split testing, landing pages, all of the things about running a business. And that was very helpful for me.
Okay. So, you've touched on a few things, and I love everything that you're sharing. I want to go back to the double what you were making. So when you put this together and you're starting out and you're getting rolling, you save 6 months, but you also make sure that your business is making double the revenue. Again, was that something that you just thought I should have this, like in your conservative nature, or was that a tip?
Yes, because I grew up in rural North Carolina where even when the weather's good, you're canning and making sure the flashlights have batteries in them for hurricane season off of North Carolina and things like that. So we were always expecting something to drop at any moment, and so I think because of that, I was saying, if I'm just replacing my income, what do we have an off month? So I had to make it, nearly double what my income was, so that if we had a rough month, I wouldn't sweat it.
I love it. So you must have started in about 97, right? Is that pretty close?
Yeah. So I officially started October 1998, and I think I left my day job in 99, maybe closer to 2000. I did keep it for over a year, but I sent my first releases in October of 1998 as a side business. I would do that in the mornings, go to work till 6 or 7 because it was a startup there, and then I would go home and tidy up stuff in the evenings.
Wow, that's incredible. And you said that you joined a mastermind. How far along were you on the journey when you dove into that?
So it was the early 2000s. I think it was like probably 2003 or something like that. I know that Google advertising was really getting started at that time. Before that, it was only Overture or GoTo.com as pay-per-click marketing. And
Sure.
so I was looking to learn more about Google advertising, and someone had just published their book about it. And so I reached out to that person and gotten their funnel and education, and realized they had a marketing mastermind, and got swooped up into that.
Wow. Okay. And so was the mastermind a pivotal moment for you in your business? Was it a game-changing business, and why?
It was, because I was just, running things by gut feeling. And when it comes to being able to measure stuff and know what statistical relevance is and why you can't, if you have 2 clients in front of you and you give them 2 separate pitches, and one on one side buys, that's not statistically relevant. You've got to go through 30, 40 on both sides and start to get some evidence. And if it's overwhelming, then yeah, you can suspend the other side. But if it's not, you just have to continue to measure until you get that statistical relevance. So it really got me on my game with advertising and comparing ads and keywords and things like that. But there was also the comfort in asking other people about, hey, I'm thinking about hiring my first employee. What are your recommendations? How do you pay them? And all of those types of things. And so it was just good to have people that you could go to, and they are also sharing their speed bumps and their hindrances and obstacles, as well as what's working for them. I found that to be the coolest thing, where people were talking about what's working, what cool tools they're using, what approach they're using in their business. And so I found that very exciting, and I really liked it, and it allowed me to sort of really just grow the business considerably, and also start taking on staff.
Wow, that's awesome. So had you hired your first employee before the mastermind, or was it after?
It was before the mastermind, because the mastermind, I would have to go to Chicago, I think a couple of times a year, and then we usually met someplace warmer in the winter. And so we were meeting, I think, 3 times a year. And so, yeah, I did have a full-time employee. I may have even had a second employee at that time, or shortly thereafter.
Now, I'm just so impressed with the way you started the business, like 6 months living expenses, double what I'm making. Like, wow, I love that. I mean, I love it. I'm so impressed by it. What metrics or what things were you thinking about when you pulled the trigger on employee number 1? Did you have some of those same safeguards in place, or
I did
Was it
because
okay?
it
Share.
was
I
it
gotta
was
know. I gotta know.
the last thing I wanted to do was to have an off month and have to lay someone off because of it. So again, I waited until the business was off-putting enough where I could afford two employees. And so I ended up hiring a really good friend of mine who had just left her job in the nonprofit space. And I do not recommend hiring friends or family, but I did. And it was, a good working relationship for about a decade, but the friendship eroded under the stresses of a business.
Right. That's true. So to get this right, you're building the business, you're going along the journey, and you say to yourself, okay, I'm ready to hire one, but I'm making enough for two. So that way I'm not laying someone off. I'm not in a bad position.
Right.
That was basically some of the planning that you put forth. Okay. And then you give this piece of advice and you say, don't hire friends and family. And every entrepreneur who's starting out is like, oh yeah, my sister's going to be the cook, and my boyfriend's going to be the bartender, or whatever they're doing. Why does that not work out? Why is that something that you would say don't do it? Is it because you lose the friendship, or is it just because it's hard working with one another?
It's hard to fire friends and family. And I think that in the case of me hiring a really good friend as employee number one, it she grew resentful as the business blossomed and I started, making six figures and high six figures. And she was very highly compensated, but, she saw the money I was making. She saw the house I was moving into, and she resented it. And I think that's natural. When you're embedded in the business, you see that you're critical to it. But, I also offered her lots of additional things to make her life easier. She was always running home to take her dog for a walk. And I said, hey, well, we hire a dog walker. And, rather than you do X, Y, and Z, why don't you do this and I'll pay for it? I've offered to take care of lots of stuff. And I felt like she just was wanting to keep it completely professional and didn't want to take advantage of anything like that. And I think that she actually, in a way, enjoyed this feeling of me being this rich millionaire, is what she would call me behind my back. And so, and when she eventually left, I found that she had a folder in her inbox where we had a twice a year special where we'd sell packages of releases, 5 packs, 10 packs, 25 packs. Some of these like $15,000, which is a big deal to a small business. And my thing was, if someone comes in and says, hey, I could use another package, but we don't have a sale right now, open it up to them, let them have it.
Yeah.
She had said no to over $400,000 in sales.
Whoa.
And about 2/3 of them never came back.
Whoa.
And so as soon as she left the business, we just grew. I think we grew like 30% just by saying yes to money. And so, yeah, in retrospect, it wasn't a perfect fit. I think that the personal closeness and then the business, it just didn't go well. And maybe other people can make it work, but I've since hired another good friend, and he just didn't get along with the office staff. So eventually I let him go. But in doing so, I told him, I will pay your salary until you find another job. And he took that to 8 months. And come to find out, he wasn't looking for 6 of those months. And so I paid it, learned my lesson. We're still friends, but I just learned that, you can be too generous, and it's just better to keep things professional and not bring friends on board.
Wow. Those are some powerful lessons. And I appreciate you diving in and sharing those for sure, because I think that's pretty powerful. What you've said there, I love this line, just say yes to money. Like, I'm actually going to take that and use that somewhere else. Like, I love that line, just say yes to money. I mean, I think that's incredible. And I want to move on to what your business is doing and the importance of it. But I want to ask one more question. And when you're in the position of hiring and you know you have an easy hire with a friend or a relative, to any business owner out there who's listening to this, what is your advice to them on what to do different? Like, where should they look, or what should they do? Like, what do they do to not step into the place that you experienced with those two people?
So, me personally, I would just say don't hire friends and family. I just put that as a line in the sand. I also know that other people start businesses with family and friends. Other people have family and friends that work in the business, and it can work. And I just think be mindful of if you're not full partners, is this person going to have resentment if you get very successful? Are they actually even going to try to sabotage your success? Because being a friend and then seeing you wildly succeed and they're part of it, it does make them feel like they're not being appreciated as much,
Absolutely.
And so I think that it could work with a partnership easier than I think that it could in an employee relationship.
I would agree with you 100%. So your journey has been fantastic. I love the decoration that you have behind you too. What is that? Is that an ape head or a dinosaur head, or what is the big head behind you?
Sure. So that is a cave bear skull fossil. It is a replica. There's an education company that makes really good replicas, and they hand tent them. And I think that'd be like $60,000 to $80,000. And
Wow.
it's I think under 1,000. But they do a really good job. They take real casts from real fossils and stuff like that.
Okay, I love that. I just had to ask the random thing. So you're in business 26 years. You've been successful. What is the importance of press releases in anybody's business? Like, what does it do for them? Why do it? And I've got more questions, but if I ask you too many in a row, you'll be like, dude, you asked me too many questions at once. So
Sure.
I guess break that down for us.
Sure. So a press release is just an announcement to the media. They have a certain look and format. And, if they're easy enough to write, you can actually get AI to write it. I don't have a problem with that, because at the end of the day, the press release isn't what gets published. We're looking to get articles published based on the content in the press release. We're looking for a journalist to write something. So the New York Times never publishes a press release. Washington Post never publishes a press release, but they use press releases as the material, the content to write an article by their staff. And so, in the case of me mentioning that first press release that did really well, getting picked up by the Washington Post, The Economist, Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, and 3 telecom trade publications for us was like, a $50,000 day. And so, and there were several of those because, that some came out within days. The trade publications came out over a month or two for the monthlies. The weekly telecom ones were pretty fast. And so it was just steady business as a result of it. And, and that's the goal. And for some people, the pickup may not be as big as huge national publications. It might just be more like your local newspaper picked it up, or a local magazine or business journal or something like that. And those still can, reach your market and also get people to pay attention to you. Because when someone reads an article about you, it's like third-party corroboration or social proof. When a journalist writes about you, it's almost like an implied endorsement. It's huge credibility. So if you said something in an ad, people immediately go, it's probably not true, or I'm very cautious. But when they read about it in an article, their guard is down. And I think that's why when a blog or a newsletter or a newspaper or somebody covers Indiegogo or Kickstarter, a lot of people find themselves pulling out their credit card and wanting to back this person, because that human empathy comes through when you read about someone. You're like, they're on this journey, they're trying to get this thing that they've identified as something that's missing in the market, and I want to support them even if I don't need this little gadget or whatever it is. And it's a very natural human response, this emotional response that we have to this human interest.
Yeah.
And so that's the real power of PR and earned media, and that's what we call it when we get these articles written about us. And it doesn't have to always be articles; it can be TV, radio, podcasts as well. We have a lot of TikTok and influencers using press releases. I follow somebody called Snackalator who gets press releases each week about new snacks hitting grocery store shelves, and he takes the still photos that they include with their press releases and shows those behind them, and often references that they're from press releases, and allows him to get a sneak peek as to something that's just hitting the market right then. And same thing with fashion influencers, especially people on Instagram. If they don't have all the inside connections at the fashion brands that they cover, again, pulling them from press releases means that they can get them to their community and people the moment that they're announced.
Wow, that's incredible. So is there a certain type of business that should be using press releases, or do you think that this is open to all businesses?
I think it's open to most businesses. The ones that have a very difficult time are those that are in the vitamin and health market, because there's a lot of rules about that, and they're not often the easiest press release I can get through the newswire. So health claims or anything like that are very restrictive. Things that involve pumping, like crypto and NFTs, also probably not ideal for my business and going through the newswire, because again, the newswire is aware of these pump and dump type things and these cycles of things, so they try to not allow a lot of that stuff. If it's something that's truly breakthrough with blockchain and things like that, that's completely fine and has real world applications. But if you're just launching, some ape NFT or something like that, new little thing, it's probably not going to work very well. But outside of that, service-based businesses, product-based businesses, B2B, B2C, if you sell nationally, internationally, even if you're in a local market, PR can work for you. And when it comes to your local market, I tell people, do a little work yourself and establish some relationships with local media. You don't need to pay a service like mine to reach local media. It's just a matter of looking in your newspaper and figuring out who covers your industry. If you're lucky enough to have a business magazine or business newspaper, we have both here in Baltimore, who again would cover your industry. Ask for their email address or look online for it. They'll give it to you. These aren't celebrities. These are members of the media. They're supposed to be accessible. If you call and say, I'd like this person's email address, they might go, what do you need it for? And you say, hey, I'm a local business. I'd like to pitch them. And they'll either put you through to that person or get you an email address. But it's not very difficult to get that. And then once you have it, you have it. And so you build your local Rolodex. It may be less than 9 people. And so that's very doable for anybody. And then as you have ideas that are, you're doing something cool, you send them a pitch. You don't even have to write a whole press release. You can just send them 4 to 6 sentences of what you feel that you're doing that's really cool. Maybe include a photo or an image, and it doesn't have to be super professional. Something you take with your cell phone is completely fine.
Wow.
It has some of the best engagement. People engage more with a candid shot online than they do with the professional shots. So a lot of people are using more candid shots, and a lot of the news places like to use candid shots as well. And in addition to that, keep an eye out for newsworthy opportunities. Sometimes I tell people to create Google alerts around certain keywords that are specific to your industry, and you'll find somebody writing about somebody in Cleveland, Ohio. And then you can take that seed of the idea of what they focused on and go to this local media, and rather than say, hey, I saw this in another market, you say, hey, you pitch it like it's a novel idea. You go, hey, I've seen a big trend in the media where they talk about credit card security, and as a local security consultant who helps many businesses, I'd love to share how I'm helping a lot of small mom and pop businesses. Tony's Pizza could talk about this, the local dry cleaners. Here's a photo of me setting up a credit card terminal at a recent grand opening of a tanning salon, things like that. And then maybe put a quote in there, like a sentence that you feel is like really profound, or you say something very well or paraphrased so tightly that if they weren't to use it, there would be an ache or a loss to the original language. I always tell people that, when it comes to quotes, you can be a wordsmith or a Shakespeare, but you don't have to. You just have to say something so tight and so paraphrased and with such strength, active verbs and that kind of stuff, that a journalist can say, hey, I envision this article and I know that in it's going to have this amazing quote. So they just, they bite it and they feel like, yeah, I want to do that article. And so Again, this is something you can do. I tell people try to do it at least quarterly, but if you can do it more often, you're going to have better results. You may have no results the first year. That's the reality of it. But what you're doing is you're going to stay in their mind. And it's not unusual to pitch someone for a year, and then out of the blue, a couple months later, you get contacted by them and they say, hey, I'm working on this story and I was looking for a local business to plug in there. And I remember seeing some of your releases and I immediately thought of you. Would you be interested in this article? Could I talk to you and get some quotes? And when they say that, you need to say, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Let me put together some really good language around this and email you some potential quotes, and I'll follow up later in the afternoon just to make sure you got it and if you have any other questions. And so again, spend a little time on that quote, make it stand out, and you will be a hero if you send them an amazing quote.
Wow, that's incredible. I love that. So when you're going through this process, like you said, hey, this is something we probably want to do quarterly, maybe more often, maybe every other month. Engaging with a firm like yours, what does that cost? What does that look like for somebody who says, man, I don't want to get to 9 people and put this all together and send it out, but I see the benefit. I see how powerful this can be. What does something like that look like? Or is it a case by case basis?
So we have a la carte pricing, and we have a new customer special. It's on the footer of our page. So for $349, you can send out a newsmaker, is what we call it, which is normally $599. You can buy packages at that rate. And so you can build a package of 6 releases for well under $3,500. And put together releases and send them out. I do recommend people who are considering it and looking to move forward. I like the DIY approach. We offer writing, but it's expensive for what you get. It's $300 additional per release. And like I said, this is stuff that even AI knows the template and layout. But what AI doesn't know is what you should be writing about and the strategic types of releases. 97% of all press releases out there do not get earned media. And that includes a lot of the releases that go through eReleases. And so, don't go to AI and have it come up with ideas for releases, because it'll come up with releases that look just as good as all the other competitors out there. But I'm telling you, you and the majority of those competitors and those releases aren't doing anything meaningful. And so do a strategic type of press release. And I have a free masterclass that's only an hour long that goes through the most strategic types of releases you should consider. During the pandemic, I looked at the 3% of releases being picked up, and I saw lots of patterns in there that anyone can do. Focus on a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases, and make them strategic. And you won't have everyone get picked up, but you should have 2 or 3 out of a campaign of 6 to 8 releases. And it really only takes one release that does extremely well to really move the needle in your business. And so anybody interested in that free masterclass, it's at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN, less than an hour long video. And there's also some accompanying materials there. But wow, in an hour, you will know more than I think a lot of PR professionals do. These types of story-based press releases, the ones that incorporate elements for story arc. We get a lot of product launch press releases, and it's like, here's a new product, here's a list of features, and it's important to them, but you haven't made it important to the journalists. Take a use case study, a company that had this problem, they used your product or service, and they saw an outcome, and they have a quote as well as a data point. So, let's say you sell your logistics software solutions, and you have a new solution coming online, and you say, hey, This transportation company is 3 years old. It's been losing 7% a year. They used our software solution for 120 days. And at the end of that trial, they're projected to have a 5% profit at the end of this year. And and then you can just take a publicly available data point and say, hey, 63% of new transportation companies fail in their first 5 years because they don't achieve profitability. So that shows the stakes of why it's so important to get your profitability in there, and then have a quote by them saying, we never believed that a proper quote was the missing ingredient and to profitability in our business. But once we started using the solution and plugging in everything in, and it creating the bid for our clients, we found that we are now projected to be profitable by the end of this year. And that's a game changer for our business. So having a little quote by them and all of that they know, a journalist knows when someone reads about this new product and how it was miraculous for this business, and this business is in this position, other people can identify with it. It brings them in with that human interest element, and it makes them care. And that makes your press release so much more strategic and newsworthy. So, that's just one of the things that I go through in that masterclass, but there's several different types of things like that a lot of people don't realize or pay attention to. I like I said, I see hundreds and hundreds every month of product launch press releases, and they're missing that. And that is so important because it makes it very unlikely for a journalist to write an article. I can't remember the last article I've read that's just, here's a product and here's a list of features, outside of the giant companies that usually get picked up when, the Microsofts and Googles of the world. And very few articles are just features. And so you got to have something that really rises. And a use case study is one of the most important things.
Well, that is incredible information. I mean, you are a wealth of knowledge. It sounds amazing. I got to get hooked up with you guys. Like, I love what you're doing. I've got two final questions here for you. One, this is for the entrepreneur who's out there. They're building their business. Statistically, I was looking at some statistics yesterday about business success, and only 1% of businesses seem to make it to 25 years. You were at 26. So congratulations on not being a statistic and being in the 1% of all business owners out there. That's absolutely incredible. What tip would you give to the entrepreneurs listening to this show? What do they need to do for that kind of longevity?
I think for me, it's stay lean as long as you can. A lot of people want to incorporate immediately. I didn't get my LLC until several years into the business. I just was a sole proprietorship when I launched with a DBA. And the reason for that is I didn't have $3,000 or $4,000 to what I thought I needed at the time to hire a lawyer and handle all that. So, you can start with nearly next to nothing. And people were like, but your business could fail. And I'm like, yeah, but I was worth nothing. I was fresh out of school. I didn't have assets to protect. So I didn't get an office until I absolutely needed office space. That first employee I had would come into my home, and we had a home office in the basement and would work there. I wouldn't recommend that going forward, but I think that, just staying lean as long as you can. Don't get seduced by giant office space that's like huge premium. We're in very bare bones office space because it's not something that is important to the business. Clients never come into the office. So it doesn't have to be amazing and beautiful. It's got to be a safe place for the employees to work. It's got to be well lit, and stuff like that. But it doesn't need to have the crazy amenities of some office space that I've seen. I've seen some people launch and waste so much money on legal fees, startup fees, securing all of these consultants and things like that. I just say, start small, measure everything, learn about split testing and statistical relevance. And it doesn't apply just to advertising. I split tested how we onboarded new customers and found huge significant differences in how we were doing that. So you just take two processes and measure them, and then look at the long lifetime value of those two populations over time. And it can really be startling what a difference in your onboarding can do to the longevity and the lifetime value of a client. And, just try to learn as much as you can. And I think, trust the experts. One of the things that I did in April of 2015, I was in and out of that marketing mastermind. I'd take some time off for a few years and go back in. And one of the things that I complained about was I had heavy turnover in my business. The editors that I tended to hire lasted a year. And I felt like it takes 6 months to onboard someone to really know the job well. And so I found that very frustrating. And so one of the HR consultants there who works with large companies said, "Hey, Mickie, you're wasting a lot of your time at the marketing mastermind where you get like little pieces to talk about your business, talking about this issue. I could probably solve it for you." So she interviewed my staff, she interviewed my customers, and she looked at my job postings and came back and told me that, I was thinking I was hiring the wrong person. And she's like, "No, you're hiring great staff. The customers love your staff. They're having a great experience. The staff doesn't really like you. You're a micromanager and you nitpick them constantly." And I was into this Kaizen thing where you make all these tiny little improvements in the business. So every time a client had a call, I'd be right behind them saying, "Hey, next time when someone asks that question, rather than say it this way, say it this way." I felt I was refining my employees little by little, but they felt like I was cutting them down little by little. And so I tried to just say, "Okay, I'm a micromanager. And now that I know, I won't do it anymore." The better said than done. I found myself back in it that day after telling them I was going to get better. So I left the office in April of 2015. And, I walked away. There was someone there that was a little more senior than everybody else, and she had run a newspaper before. And so I put her in charge as the managing editor and told them, "I'll be at home. I'm going to focus on marketing and the bigger picture." And it freed me up. All of a sudden, I had 20 or 30 hours where I wasn't monitoring my staff and nitpicking with them, but trusting that, hey, they're not going to say things the way I'm going to say it, but it's going to be fine. People are having a good experience. And instead, I focused on growing the business, and we've tripled since then. And almost everybody that was there at the time in 2015 is still there. So I solved the turnover problem. It was me. And for me, people are like, "Wow, you just took their word for it and stepped aside." And I said, I think one of the best things you can do as an entrepreneur is recognize your limitations. You're not the expert. And when a professional comes in and says, "You're a micromanager," look and say, "Do I recognize that?" And as soon as you see it, change or get out of the way. And for me, that I just got out of the way. I think that some people may not be able to just step away from the business like that. But for me, I was able to do that. And it was so beneficial to the business. I felt so stressed before. All this time and energy and disappointment that I was just weighed down with, it just melted away. And now I take my staff to a annual retreat for a week at the beach, and they see me as a fun boss, and they don't feel like they're being nitpicked, and they feel appreciated. And I can focus on the bigger parts of the business that are more likely to move the needle than, hey, don't say no to a customer. Try to say it yes in a way that you spin it around marketing, gobbledygook speak that I wanted to get out of them, and just recognize that they're going to give people a good experience and trust the people that you hire.
Incredible advice, incredible story. I absolutely love it. I actually came up with like 5 more questions, but we're going to go way over time, so I can't do that. But I mean, I have loved everything you've said. It's been a mastermind of 45 minutes. It's been absolutely incredible. One final question. You have a billboard. The world can see it. It's completely blank. You get to put a sentence, a statement to share with the world. What does your whiteboard, what does your billboard say to the world?
What does my billboard say to the world? think it's going to say look within. I think so many people are looking for externally, whether it's validation or ideas or whatever. Look within, center yourself, look within yourself.
I love that. That's awesome. All right. So you're running the business, you're having a great time. How can people get a hold of you? Where do they follow you? Are you on social media? Can people follow you on social media?
Yes. So the website's eReleases.com. All my social media is on the lower right. It's my direct LinkedIn, which is always a good way to reach out to me because that's about the only one I understand well. And I have people who manage the rest. But feel free to call or email or chat with any of the staff. I only have editors. I have no salespeople, no commissions. Everybody's empowered to say, I don't think this is a good idea, or we're able to say no to the money as well as yes to the money. So I'm really proud of that, and we help people every day with their first release, give them advice for getting started. And again, a great place to just get started and get a little bit of information is that free masterclass. It's less than an hour long, and again, that's at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN.
All right. If you're out there and you're listening, you've heard my friend Mickie share it all. Get that free masterclass. Do it. I know I'm going to get signed up for it. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah, and I think take advantage of this press release and these guys at eRelease. They're going to shoot you straight. Absolutely incredible for your business. I love everything that you've shared. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and I am on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere it's social. I'm hanging out. If you like this show, give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments into the comment box. We'll be sure to get back with you 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every Tuesday. Mickie, it's been absolutely incredible having you on this show. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.